This week on Milk Street, we travel to Turkey and make gözleme. It's a savory Turkish flatbread stuffed with spinach and cheese. Then we make a tomato onion salad from southern Turkey that is dressed with pomegranate molasses, lemon juice, and herbs. Finally, we finish up with one of my personal favorites, a steak marinated in a pomegranate molasses, Aleppo pepper, and rosemary. Please stay tuned to Milk Street as we explore the cooking of Turkey.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
That meal. You sautéed, you seared, and you served. Cooking with All-Clad. Bonded cookware designed, engineered, and assembled in the USA for over 50 years. All-Clad. For all your kitchen adventures.
Anna, how are you?
I'm great, Chris.
I'm
Thanks.
great because I'm here at Oleana. It's a beautiful patio where you serve dinner. You're famous for your Turkish inspiration and your food, but you started at, I think, La Varenne, the French chateau.
That's right.
In France.
Right.
And so how did you go from French training to Turkey?
I really wanted to understand sort of the technique and the rules of cooking in general. So obviously when you want to do that, you got to go to France. And then I came back from France. I worked for Monsef Madem, who was a Tunisian chef. After I worked with him, I went to a place called Casablanca. The owner was Sari Abuljabain, and he was born in Palestine but raised in Syria. And he was having dinner with a Turkish woman one day when I was cooking. She offered, hey, you should send your chef to Turkey and study with me, and I'll teach her everything I know. It would literally be a crossroads for me as far as changing the way I thought about food and eating food and thinking about vegetables and things like that. It really did change me.
How did it change? I mean, you have La Varenne, you have the French methodology, which is, I think, heat and technique and time to develop flavor. How did you find Turkish cooking to be different than what you'd been trained for?
What I loved about it was the food was rich but not heavy. Ayfer, the woman who hosted me, she had a potluck. Basically, she invited 30 of her friends to cook dishes that they really loved. Flavors I'd never tasted before, and a lot of vegetable dishes, but then some meat dishes, but that were heavy on vegetables. So it was like the ratios were all different from what I'm used to. It wasn't about this protein anymore. It was about these flavors coming together. When you'd take a bite, you'd go, oh, and then you'd take another bite and you'd go, oh, like there'd be something else you'd get from it. But also tasting 35 things at lunchtime, like usually you feel terrible after that, like that's just too much. And I realized I don't feel bad. Like this is all food that I can actually eat. Whereas in a French restaurant, you have a 35-course tasting menu, you feel terrible, right?
$1,000 and 4 hours later, you have a
Exactly.
stomachache. Okay, so gözleme is yufka, a flatbread stuffed. What do you put in it?
So I like to do a mixture of cheeses. You want to take that cheese and you want to just load it with fresh herbs and lots of sautéed onions.
So flatbreads, obviously, all around the world are incredibly diverse and popular. Not a big tradition in the United States, but they're simple. A lot of them don't even use yeast. You can make them in 10 or 15 minutes. Why are flatbreads not tradition here? Why is it always the big yeasted European bread?
It was a bread that would preserve almost, so you could dry it out and layer it up. So if you go to areas in the north of Greece or in Turkey, they're literally like air drying the flatbreads. And then they use it almost like we would use like dried pasta in a way. Before they eat it, they can just spray it with a little water and reconstitute it and then use it for whether they're making pies with it, making a flatbread sandwich or a stuffed flatbread to eat as a street food or a snack. So there's many different variations of it, but I think the point is that it preserves and they can carry it with them and then they can kind of reconstitute it. The one we're gonna make today is called yufka, and it's an unleavened flatbread. It's kind of, I think there's a lot of debate about this, but in the north of Greece, they make this same dough and same preparation, and they call it phyllo. So we think this is the origin of phyllo, and it's so easy to make. I'm not a dough person or a pastry person at all, and I make this at home with my daughter. It is so easy and non-fussy. Sometimes if you're tight on space, you can just knead it inside the bowl because it doesn't take much. Then it just goes right on a plancha or a cast iron pan or a non-stick pan. I don't want to cook it until it's like brittle and dry, but I want to cook it until it starts to puff. But if it's a little bit medium rare on the dough side, it's okay because we're gonna fill it and toast it again. So, and I want them to be kind of soft and supple.
So if you don't keep them moist, they're gonna get too stiff to fold up?
Yes, but the beauty of these is if they do dry out a little bit, you can just get your hands wet and moisten them back up. The spinach will kind of melt into the bread.
Oh, that's really good.
Right?
Well, you know, a little bit of the cheese, but then the mint comes through.
I love
Anna,
it.
thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
You know, I really do love flatbreads because North America, other than Mexico, of course, doesn't have a big tradition of flatbreads. Pita, sage, for example, barbary from Iran, Somali pancakes, etc. They're really easy to make, and some of them have no yeast and no baking powder. As Anna Sortun said, yufka is one of those great flatbreads from Turkey that has no leavening at all. And to get started, you have to make the dough. The dough is very simple to make. A couple tablespoons of olive oil, a little salt, 2 cups of flour, and 2/3 cup of warm water around 110 degrees. You mix that up for just a few minutes, take that out, put it in a lightly oiled bowl, cover it and let it sit for about an hour, and you get this. Now, the beauty of this dough is, unlike many other flatbreads, it's so easy to work with, it's not gonna snap back on you. And the first thing we need to do is to divide this into 6 pieces because we're making 6 yufka in gozleme. And one way to do that, instead of just having a ball of dough and trying to divide it into 6, which is hard, if you roll it out a little bit in a log, it's a little bit easier to see. So we'll divide that in half, and then we'll do this in thirds. And then we'll roll into dough balls like that. This is a very pliable dough because of the olive oil, so it's really easy to work with. Okay, so now we have 6 balls of dough. We'll cover the ones we're now using with a towel to keep them moist. You don't want to use too much flour, just a little bit on your work surface. And now we're gonna roll it out. Now, unlike pie pastry dough, which is kind of hard to roll out because it kind of snaps back on you, it's got a lot of fat in it, this is really easy to do. And we can get it rolled out to 8 or 9 inches. It's not that critical, but you want about 8 inches. I'd say that's about 8 inches. And we'll just put that on a square of parchment paper, a little more flour, and we'll do another one. Now the fun part, you get to actually cook the yufka. They only take about 90 seconds. You want to heat up a cast iron pan slow and low, about 10 minutes. It takes a while for it to get up to speed, but the nice thing is it retains heat, which means you can cook a bunch of these without losing heat in the pan. If you just take a little bit of water, you can throw it in the pan like that. It should immediately go up in steam, and then you know it's ready. So we'll start with the first one. Just lay that in the pan. And what you're gonna wanna see are 2 things. You wanna see a little bit of brown spotting on the bottom side, and it's gonna puff up just a little bit as well. We're only cooking these on one side, and that's because later we're gonna fill these and fold them over. And now we're gonna take that out and put this into a bag, and we'll let that sit. That way it'll remain pliable. So let's do a second one. So you can see it's starting to puff up, and if you look underneath, so there we go, that's number 2. And again, we'll put this in the bag right on top of the other one, and that'll keep it nice and soft, and we'll just keep going. So now it's time for the filling that starts with onion, which we've sauteed for a few minutes, and that's ready to go. And now we have 3 types of cheese. We have a cup of whole milk ricotta. We're sort of making up for Kayseri cheese, which is the typical Turkish cheese, also from Greece. It's a sheep's milk cheese, and that's what they would typically use for this filling. But we're gonna do 3 cheeses to sort of approximate that flavor. So we're starting, as I said, with whole milk ricotta. We're using 3/4 cup of feta, which is crumbled. And then if you do have Kayseri cheese, that's fine. If not, Gruyere seems to work pretty well too. Again, it has a similar flavor profile. The other thing that we love about this recipe is the combination of herbs, fresh herbs with cheese. So we have dill, we have mint, which is really nice, typical in Turkish cooking, and also parsley. We'll add that in. Then a little bit of pepper goes in as well. We'll just mix that together. So fresh herbs, 3 kinds of cheese, a little pepper, and that's the basis for the filling for the gozleme. Now, the last component of the filling is spinach. We took a 5-ounce package of spinach, we chopped it. We're gonna add just a little bit of salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and just mix it in with our hands. This will make it wilt a little bit. You wanna pretty finely chop it as well, and that's gonna go on top of the cheese herb filling. So let's make a little bit of room here, because now we have to assemble these. So we're gonna start by taking one of them. And again, they're cooked on one side. They're still very pliable because they've been in that gallon bag. And now we're gonna start with the filling. We're gonna divide it into thirds, essentially. And just put it down the center third. You wanna leave about 1 inch around the edge of this. So while we're doing this, we're heating up the skillet, the cast iron skillet again, to get it nice and hot. And that's gonna be used with some oil to finish cooking these on both sides to crisp up the exterior. So that's pretty good. And put just a little bit of spinach right in the middle. Like that. And now we're just gonna fold it up. The ends will be open. We're just gonna fold it up over like that and then fold it back. Now, I like to use a little bit of water, seal the deal, and turn this over and seal it. So now we're gonna wait for the skillet to heat. It's almost there. I like to put my hand about 1 inch or 2 above the skillet. And if you do this a few times, you'll sort of get a sense of it. You'll see a little bit of smoking. I would say it's almost there. And we'll put about 1 tablespoon of olive oil in the pan because you really wanna crisp up both sides of these so it's crispy on the outside and creamy on the inside. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we can do 2 at a time. And they'll take 2.5 minutes aside. You wanna check them. You want a nice dark brown. You wanna get it crispy, but obviously you don't wanna burn them. So we should check them. It's been a little over 2 minutes. Yeah, it's nicely browned on the other side. Cheese is melty. So that's 2, and we'll finish up with the next 4. Again, fill, fold, and 2.5 minutes aside. So the last 2 are done. I'll just take them out. That's number 5, and then this one's for me. So that's our yufka flatbread, that thin flatbread we cooked on one side, filled with 3 different kinds of cheese and herbs and spinach, which makes it the Turkish specialty gozleme, which is a filled yufka. And a huge thank you, by the way, to Anna Sortun of Oleana Restaurant in Cambridge.
Today, I'm going to be making a Turkish tomato and onion salad. Now, this recipe is inspired by the Manzara restaurant in Söğüt, which is a city in southeastern Turkey. I love this salad because it's bright, it's bracing, it features a star ingredient, and it is super simple to make. So, let's get to it. These are white onions, thinly sliced, and here's an important point. We're going to macerate them. That means we're going to quick pickle them without cooking them so that they mellow and lose their bite but retain all their flavor. To do this, I'm going to use some lemon juice as well as our star ingredient, pomegranate molasses. It's important you buy very high quality pomegranate molasses. The low-grade ones tend to have added sugar, so be sure to look at the ingredients. So I'm going to add my onions to the bowl. And then in goes the lemon juice. And the pomegranate molasses. To that, I'm going to add some salt and pepper. And this gets stirred very well. That's it. This is going to sit for 10 minutes, and I'm going to prepare the rest of the ingredients in the meantime. My onions are beautifully soft and mellow, and I'm going to continue building the dressing in the bowl, adding olive oil. I'm going to mix this very well to make sure the dressing is emulsified. And now I'm going to add the tomatoes. I'm using cocktail tomatoes, which are very easy to find all year round and stay flavorful. They're small, they've been cut into wedges, so those are going in now. And now I'm going to add the herbs. I have here some fresh flat leaf parsley. I have chopped fresh dill, and this is optional, some dried mint. Now, this salad is typically served with a traditional Turkish meze platter, but it's really good with grilled meats and kebabs as well. Before I serve this, I'm going to let it sit for about 15 minutes to make sure the tomatoes soften a little bit and the flavors meld. So my salad has been sitting for about 15 minutes. The tomatoes have softened, the flavors should have all melded by now, and I've transferred it into this lovely serving bowl. And I'm going to serve myself some. So here we have our beautiful, bright and bracing Turkish tomato and onion salad. It's perfect on its own or also with grilled meats and kebabs, a great summer dish. I'm super excited to share this with you. Those pomegranate molasses are my favorite touch, and it's so, so, so easy.
Another recipe that we learned about in Söğüt in the southeastern part of Turkey was this ribeye steak that was marinated in this delicious mixture of pomegranate molasses and rosemary. We find that the nice tang that comes from the pomegranate molasses and the resinous notes from the rosemary really play well and complement the kind of richness and char of the ribeye steak. So the first thing that we have to do is marinate the steak, and that requires grating down some onion. So here I have a box grater set in a 9 by 13 inch baking dish. We're gonna take our quartered white onion here and we'll grate it on the largest side. Now, as you're grating the onions, go ahead and have it at a nice 90-degree angle just to get it started. And once you start seeing the onion start to break down, go ahead and switch your hand to an open palm motion, so that way you don't cut any of your fingertips. Now, there's no amount of flavor that's worth cutting your hand. So once you get to a nice thin sliver part of it, go ahead and move on to the next piece. Okay, so now that all of our onion is grated, we could go ahead and mix in our pomegranate molasses. Now here I have a 1/4 cup, goes right into our baking dish. And then to that, we'll also be adding in 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, as well as 1 teaspoon of Aleppo pepper. It has this really vibrant red color, as well as a nice sweet peppery note, almost similar to that of raisins and sun-dried tomatoes. If you don't have any Aleppo pepper on hand, go ahead and use a mixture of 3/4 teaspoons sweet paprika and 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. And finally, we're going to bring some herbaceousness to this marinade in the form of chopped rosemary. We just give this all a stir, and that is it. That's the marinade. All we gotta do is add in our ribeye steaks. Now, these ribeye steaks are anywhere between 12 to 14 ounces, but the important part is they're only about 1 inch thick. So we'll add our steaks to the baking dish. So now that we have our steaks in the dish, give them a quick little turn just to make sure that all of that marinade coats each and every side. So once you give these a turn, all we gotta do is let them marinate for at least 30 minutes all the way up to 24 hours. If you do go more than an hour though, you'll want to flip these in their pan just to make sure that that marinade really sinks in. Our steaks here have been marinating in the fridge, but we pulled them out about 30 minutes ago just to let them come back to room temperature. From here, we want to scrape off all of the marinade from these steaks because the marinade has both moisture and sugar, which are going to be complete deterrents to forming a nice seared crust on the outside of these steaks. So now from here, we'll go ahead and pat them as dry as we can get them. Now, while I pat these dry, I'm going to have my grill pan here preheating. So with my grill pan preheated, we could go ahead and brush it with just a little bit of neutral oil just to prevent that sticking. Now, if you are cooking this indoors, keep in mind you definitely want to open up a window and turn the vent on so that way any smoke can get vented out. My grill pan has come up to temp, and the reason I could tell is because the oil has begun to smoke. So from here, we're gonna add in our steaks. I like to give them a little squeeze with the tongs just so that way they can hold their form. But once they hit the pan, cook them undisturbed for about 5 to 7 minutes to really develop that crust on one side. That looks phenomenal, so these are ready to flip. Now I'm going to let this cook for another 5 to 6 minutes until it's about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That's for medium rare. And we'll give them a moment to rest for about 10 minutes. We're also going to top this off with just a little bit of butter, cut into smaller pieces, and give it a little rosemary as well. And the residual heat from these steaks will not only melt the butter, but also bloom the rosemary in that butter to get that nice herbaceous flavor throughout. We want to go ahead and tent this with a piece of aluminum foil. And from here, like I said, we'll let this rest for 10 minutes and then we'll come back and give it a cut. My steaks have rested for 10 minutes. All that butter has melted and that rosemary flavor has started to distribute through. I think it's time for us to cut. So, transfer our steaks over to a cutting board. And I'll cut them one at a time for you. And like any other meat, you want to be sure that you're cutting against the grain, not with it. So that way each bite is nice and tender. So the best way to look is just to see what direction the connective tissue is moving in, and then cut perpendicular to that. All right, now all we gotta do is transfer over to our plate. Beautiful. Just to give this a little bit more flavor, we'll top this off with just a pinch of salt, a little bit of black pepper, and a drizzle of pomegranate molasses, just to bring some brightness back to the game. And finally, a little sprinkle of fresh rosemary. That is a ribeye steak with pomegranate molasses and a little bit of fresh rosemary. You can find this recipe and all of the other recipes from this season on MilkStreetTV.com.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
That meal. You sautéed, you seared, and you served. Cooking with All-Clad. Bonded cookware designed, engineered, and assembled in the USA for over 50 years. All-Clad. For all your kitchen adventures.
Hey everybody, Christopher Kimball here at Milk Street, and thanks for watching us on YouTube. By the way, please subscribe to our channel and also click the bell for updates. All the recipes from our current TV season are available for free at our website, which is 177milkstreet.com. That's 177milkstreet.com. Thanks and enjoy our shows.